Good morning, everybody. Well, morning if you're in morning time somewhere around the world, afternoon or evening, whatever time you're in around the world, it is morning here. That is a live shot of St. Peter's Square in Vatican City, and some of you, I am sure, have heard that Pope Francis, the head of the Catholic Church, has died at the age of 88. So we want to bring you live coverage of this major event. There are over 1 billion Catholics in the world. And Pope Francis, if I remember right, had been Pope since, was it 2013? Am I getting that right? I got to check here. Yes, he had been Pope since 2013, over 12 years. So we're going to bring you some live coverage of this. Condolences to his family and also the Catholic community and anyone else who was felt close to Pope Francis. But a major event. And according to the Vatican, they said that he died at 7:45 a.m. local time. I think there are 1.4 billion Catholics in the world. I'll try to check that, though. About 1.4 billion Catholics. So if you just do the math, it's about one out of every, roughly 1 out of every 6 people in the world. So we're going to have some coverage for you. And let me just show you, there's a couple different angles I have of St. Peter's Square here. There's another one I have. Let's see. Which one is that one? That's this one. Ooh, there we go. They had some people talking on that one before. And we're going to take some comments from you guys and bring you some updates. The new pope isn't going to get chosen today. There's a certain number of days before they start to meet to choose the new pope. Ooh, that camera's moving around. But we'll talk about that as well. And I want to take some comments from you guys. Yes, Warflare mentions J.D. Vance. He met with J.D. Vance. Was it yesterday? I have to double check that. I want to say yesterday or the day before. Yeah, yesterday. I mean, J.D. Vance actually posted about this. J.D. Vance said on social media, I'll show you here, if I can pull it up on the screen. There it is. I just learned of the passing of Pope Francis. My heart goes out to the millions of Christians all over the world who loved him. I was happy to see him yesterday, though he was obviously very ill. But I'll always remember him for the below homily he gave in the very early days of COVID. It was really quite beautiful. May God rest his soul. Let me show you what the Vatican posted as well about this. Here is one of the Vatican announcements. Hang on a moment, I'll show you. Oh, here it is, from the Vatican. At 9:45 a.m. on Easter Monday, Cardinal Kevin Farrell spoke these words at Casa Santa Marta. Dearest brothers and sisters, with deep sorrow I must announce the death of our Holy Father Francis at 7:35 this morning. The Bishop of Rome, Francis, returned to the house of the Father. His entire life was dedicated, says the Vatican, to the service of the Lord and of his church. He taught us to live the values of the gospel with fidelity, courage, and universal love, especially in favor of the poorest and most marginalized. That is indeed something he is known for. His inclusiveness. So from what I understand, there's going to be a question of, do they, his inclusiveness, and also something he's known for is not being, say, as firmly committed to strict doctrine as some others might be. So there's a question of how, I guess I'm not a religious expert, but how strictly sticking with the doctrine the next pope will be. Will it be somebody more like Francis, or somebody a little more, I don't know what you could say, traditional in terms of the doctrine? That's a question floating around. We'll talk about that. With immense gratitude for his example as a true disciple of the Lord Jesus, we commend the soul of Pope Francis to the infinite merciful love of the one and true God. Triune God, I'm sorry. That's from the Vatican. Hang on, let me go back to the live shot. I want to take some comments from you guys. Here is a live shot of Vatican City. We go to a different one. Which one am I showing? There's one. Now, one of our viewers, Robert Dyer, says many Catholics were not a fan of this pope. Some were, some were not. Is that what you're saying? Evelyn says she believes, or Evelyn read somewhere that according to church law, the conclave can begin, the earliest is 15 days after the papacy became vacant, but may begin earlier if all the electors have arrived in Rome. She saw that somewhere. I'll let you know what I'm hearing about that. Oh, did President Trump post on Truth Social? Hold on a second here. One of our viewers mentioned Truth Social. Simple, pretty short statement from President Trump. He said, "Rest in peace, Pope Francis. May God bless him and all who loved him." That's the statement from President Trump. Rest in peace, Pope Francis. May God bless him and all who loved him. We're going to talk about him. Oops, why is that not coming up? Oh, I see. There's a picture of him right there. He was the first Latin American pope. He was from Argentina. I saw one report that said at 2 p.m. Eastern Time, he was going to be placed in a coffin. CNN had reported that. The current time in Vatican City it's a 7-hour difference with Central Time. So it is currently 2:20 p.m. in Vatican City. So he passed away, the official time of death, 7:45. So that was about 6 hours ago. One of our viewers says, American-born Pope impossible? I saw an article talking about possible replacements. We'll look at that in a second. Yes, thank you to Crypto King, by the way. I was just going to thank our moderators for being here in this stream this morning. Wanted to give you some coverage of this. Ruth Krafasi is over there on YouTube. Thank you, Ruth. Beth Mythical is modding. Thank you. There's going to be a funeral, too, but I don't know exactly when that is. Big Ball of Yarn moderating. LB Prairie Dawn. Certainly Dev. Thanks for moderating. We also have... hang on a moment. Uh, Christy's not a moderator. Christy's watching. Thanks, Christy, for watching. I appreciate that. Kay Lowry Body is moderating over there on Facebook. Thank you, Kay. Thanks also to Kristen McConnell Gates and Sharon Klassen Goslin for being subscribers over there. And Linda Bell Glary and Misha over on X. I don't believe there was a stated cause of death this morning. He had been hospitalized for weeks recently. The AP article, as I'll show you, says he suffered from chronic lung disease and had part of a lung removed as a young man. He had double pneumonia recently. He was in the hospital for 38 days. Robert Dyer says many want to go back to Italian Pope. If I have this right, I think he was the first pope in hundreds of years who was not from Europe. I think. Our viewer, VRH, says his health has been in decline. It was going to happen. Freeze Diamond says his condition was bad. The Devoted Fairy says I was right about that. I'd heard that a little earlier about the several hundred years since a non-European pope. Margaret said it was more than 1,000 years. Let me show you one of these articles here. We'll talk about some of the details. You can see AP says, wow, they have a lot of photos in this article. I'll have to check it out. AP says Pope Francis, history's first Latin American pontiff, who charmed the world with his humble style and concern for the poor, but alienated conservatives with critiques of capitalism and climate change, died Monday. He was 88. As I mentioned, they said the Vatican said at 7:35 this morning he died. Francis, who suffered from chronic lung disease and had part of one lung removed as a young man, was admitted to the hospital on February 14th for a respiratory crisis that developed into double pneumonia. He spent 38 days there, the longest hospitalization of his 12-year papacy. He was pope for 12 years. He made his last public appearance yesterday on Easter Sunday, a day before his death, to bless thousands of people in St. Peter's Square, drawing wild cheers and applause. Before that, yesterday, he had met briefly with the U.S. Vice President J.D. Vance. I wonder if there's a photo here of him yesterday. I might have video of him from yesterday. I'm going to show you some of these photos too. This is a photo of him giving a mass in Argentina in 2009. He's from Argentina. That's a photo of his name. His original name before Pope Francis was Jorge Bergoglio. He was an Argentine cardinal. That is him waving to the crowd after being elected the 266th Pope in 2013. Yeah, you know, one of our viewers, Oren Quake, said most of the cardinals who will be voting were appointed by him. I had read that. I think around 2/3. Don't you need a 2/3 choice to be pope? I'll have to look into that as well. Let me just see here. I was trying to see if there's any. There's a lot of pictures in this article. I was trying to see if there's any more pictures of him from yesterday. Hang on a moment. I have a bunch of pictures I can show you of him. Just want to see what's here. So many. No, sorry. Anyways, I'll look for that later. This is a picture of him in January. That's a picture from January 19th. AP says, again, he made his last public appearance yesterday. From his first greeting in 2013 as the Pope, a remarkably normal buona sera, good evening, to his embrace of refugees and the downtrodden, Francis signaled a very different tone for the papacy, says AP, stressing humility over hubris. For a Catholic church beset by scandal and accusations of indifference. AP says he brought a breath of fresh air into a 2,000-year-old institution that had seen its influence wane during the troubled tenure of Pope Benedict XVI, whose surprise resignation led to Francis's election. But Francis soon invited troubles of his own, and conservatives grew increasingly upset with his progressive bent, outreach to LGBTQ+ Catholics, and crackdown on traditionalists. His greatest test came in 2018 when he botched a notorious case of clergy sexual abuse in Chile, and the scandal that festered under his predecessors erupted anew on his watch. And then Francis, the crowd-loving, globe-trotting Pope of peripheries, navigated the unprecedented reality of leading a universal religion through the coronavirus pandemic from a lockdown Vatican City. He implored the world to use COVID-19 as an opportunity to rethink the economic and political framework that he said turned rich against poor. Francis's death sets off a week-long process of allowing the faithful to pay their final respects, first for Vatican officials in the Santa Marta Chapel and then in St. Peter's for the general public, followed by a funeral and a conclave to elect the new pope. So we'll be talking about that. Let me take some comments from you guys. We'll talk more about him. But there is St. Peter's Square. Right there. So let me go to another shot of him. There's St. Peter's Square too. Robert said there were a number of Catholics who were upset at his papacy. Robert Dyer said that. Colin Walsh thinks he was very bad on the issue of sexual abuses. Colin Walsh, our viewer, thinks his papacy was divisive. Yes, as Marianne Sell says, he met for a short time yesterday with Vice President of the U.S., J.D. Vance. By the way, I want to say a quick thanks to Jake Livingstone, who says, I'm a seminarian studying to be a Catholic priest. Wow. And Pope Francis was considered very controversial. May he rest in peace. Many younger Catholics are praying for Cardinal Sarah or Burke. If I'm saying those names right. Thank you very much to Jake Livingstone. Good luck with your studies. Also, by the way, our viewer Anon says no electronic devices for the conclave with a newly erected floor to jam devices. Is that true? By the way, wasn't there a recent movie called Conclave? I heard a good review of it. I don't know. I haven't seen it. Maybe some of you have seen it. Isn't it about the choosing of a new pope, or am I just off on that? I don't know. Anyways, maybe somebody will say in the chat. Hey, thanks to our member XV8 Starstream. And thank you so much, Joe Brown. Joe Brown says, RIP Pope Francis, he tried his best to be a good leader. Thank you, Joe. That's very kind of you. Barba says that movie is on Amazon. Dr. McRib said good movie. Evelyn H said good movie. So a bunch of our viewers, one of our viewers said it won an Oscar. Maybe I'll have to watch it. Fred Flintstone says he tried to water down Catholicism to appeal to the New World religion. That's what our viewer Fred said. Let me see. I had a little something here about AP says, again, Francis's death sets off a weeks-long process of allowing the faithful to pay their final respects. Weeks long. This will be followed by a funeral and a conclave to elect a new pope. And I have another article here. Which cardinals are seen to be contenders to be the next pope? This is something I know nothing about. Absolutely nothing. I'm sure a lot of you know way more about this world than I do. He died at 7:45 a.m. local time, which is about 7 hours ago now. Colin Walsh says the movie Two Popes about his transition into power is really good. Interesting. Colin said there's a movie called Two Popes. There's a movie called The Two Popes. I can see that. A biographical drama film. Interesting. The Two Popes. Maybe I'll have to. It's on Netflix. It says distributed by Netflix. Maybe it's on Netflix. I might have to put it on my list to watch. All right, hang on a second here. Freeze Diamond says, I was expecting to see more people in St. Peter's Square. I can't tell. I don't know. I mean, it's a big place, so I don't know how many people are exactly there, and I don't even know what to expect about it. It's interesting. Let me just show you again the live shot from there for a second. But I'm actually interested. I am almost at the end of my trip here. I'm still in Lima, Peru, for a very short time longer. Soon I will be going back to the U.S. But Lima, Peru is quite Catholic. I mean, Peru is quite Catholic. I think Peru is about 3/4 Catholic. I know from watching I've been watching some news in Spanish over recent weeks and months, and him being sick, Pope Francis being sick was a huge story in the Spanish language media I was watching. My guess is it's because that a lot of those people in the countries that those news programs were targeted at are Catholic. And also remember, he was the first Latin American Pope. He was from Argentina. So my guess is that it's a huge thing in Peru. I haven't been out today, but I am sure it's a huge thing here. I mean, I know, as an aside here, as a sign of how important Catholicism is in Peru, Lima is a very busy city, even at late night. I did not realize this was going to happen. For Easter weekend, things really calm down here, because a lot of people either go home. I have to fix the video. I'm going to adjust the video in a second. But a lot of people in Lima, Peru, either go home or spend it with family. And it was crazy. It was like the Super Bowl was on or something, you know, or it was Thanksgiving Day, when this weekend there were just not many people out and about because it's such an important holiday weekend for people here. I'm going to adjust the... I can fix the video if it keeps pausing like this. All right, I'm going to make a quick switch. Let me make a quick switch on the video thing. Let me just do something real quick here, which I'm sure will fix it. Hang on a moment. All right, so give me 1 sec here. I know it keeps kind of pausing, so I want to fix that. Give it a second. I think it's going to pop up right now. Hopefully it pops up. There we go. Oh, wait. Is that the actual video that's pausing? Maybe it's the actual video that's pausing, like the source video. If that's... Let's see. Let me try a different video too. Hang on. One moment here. Let's try... Oh no, it's this. Okay, that'll be better. Okay, we're good to go. We're good to go. Vatican's, St. Peter's Square. Joberman says, R.I.P. Francis, now we can get a pope that will disclose some or all of the Vatican's hidden manuscripts. Smiley face. Oh, Skinny says it will be interesting to see if the next pope is also Jesuit. He was the first Jesuit pope. I believe Jesuit is an order committed to that is committed to social justice, if I have that right. Let's talk about the next pope a little bit here. I was going to show you this. You'll see an article pop up in a second. Which cardinals are seen as contenders to be the next pope? As I told you, I know like nothing about this world. But AP says a popular saying in Vatican circles is, if you would enter a conclave as a pope, you'll leave as a cardinal. It implies that the sacred and secretive process is no popularity contest or campaign, but rather that the divinely inspired election of Christ's vicar on earth, by the princes of the church. Still, there are always front runners known as papabile, who have at least some of the qualities considered necessary to be pope, much like those depicted in last year's Oscar-nominated film Conclave. By the way, I had read that it was actually a surprise when Francis was elected pope, that he was not seen as a leading contender. Any baptized Catholic male is eligible, though only cardinals have been selected since 1378. That's interesting. The winner must receive at least 2/3 of the vote from those cardinals under age 80 and thus eligible to participate. Pope Francis, who died Monday, appointed the vast majority of the current cardinal electors, often tapping men who share his pastoral priorities, which suggests continuity rather than rupture. Anyone trying to handicap the outcome should remember that Jorge Mario Bergoglio, or Pope Francis, was considered too old to be elected pope in 2013 at age 76, and that Karol Wojtyla, and I don't even remember, he was Pope John Paul II. He wasn't on any front-runner lists going into the 1978 conclave that elected him Pope John Paul II. Interesting. That's very interesting. Just to go over a couple of these, it says Cardinal Peter Erdo, Archbishop of Budapest and Primate, is it, of Hungary? I'm not going to read these all in detail, but they just talk about some different ones. Cardinal Reinhard Marx, the Archbishop of Munich in Freising. Cardinal Mark Ouellet, 80 years old, of Canada. Cardinal Pietro Parolin, 70, of Italy. Cardinal Robert Prevost. The idea of an American pope has long been taboo given the geopolitical power already wielded by the U.S., but the Chicago-born Prevost, 69, could be a first. He has an extensive residence in Peru, it says, where I am right now. All right. His comparative youth, I was thinking, would they go for somebody younger? But this is very interesting. It says, you can see at the bottom of this passage, it says, Prevost's comparative youth, 69 years old, could count against him if his brother cardinals don't want to commit to a pope who might reign for another 2 decades. That's really interesting. There's a couple more they have on this list. Cardinal Robert Sarah of Guinea. Would he be the first African pope? Am I right about this? That's what it seems to suggest here. Cardinal Christoph Schönborn of Vienna, Austria. He seems to have the doctrinaire academic chops to appeal to conservatives on paper. But he became associated with one of France's most controversial moves by defending this outreach to divorced and civilly remarried Catholics as an organic development of doctrine, not the rupture that some conservatives contended. Louis Tegel of the Philippines would appear to be Francis's pick for the first Asian pope. He was the Archbishop of Manila. Cardinal Matteo Zuppi, Archbishop of, is it Bologna? It's very interesting. I mean, I don't know of all these people, but you can just see with a quick look through, there's different considerations of where people are from, how old they are, how strict they are on certain parts of Catholic doctrine. Skinny says it will be interesting to see if the next pope is also Jesuit. Tony says the next pope should be a female popess. Any baptized Catholic male is eligible, says AP, although only cardinals have been pope since 1378. Jazzy Renee says no American pope, please. Hang on, I want to mention something here. Oh, thank you, by the way, to very much to Kristen Gates. Thank you so much, Kristen, for your support. Kristen Gates, I really appreciate that, Kristen. Thank you. A cardinal is a senior member of the church's, a leader in the church's hierarchy, a senior cleric. And how many cardinals are there? Guys, how many cardinals are there? Oh my gosh. According to Wikipedia, there are 252 serving cardinals, of whom 135 are eligible to vote in the conclave. There are 135 who have to choose, and they're probably going to choose amongst themselves. 135, and you need 2/3. That's really interesting. Harland Berserker thinks priests need to be allowed to marry. There has been a debate about that in the Catholic Church, right? About celibacy debate. You can see here. On Wikipedia it says, clerical celibacy is the discipline within the Roman Catholic Church by which only unmarried men are ordained to the episcopate from the priesthood. In the Latin Church, one of the 24 rites of the Catholic Church with some particular exception, blah, 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 blah. And similarly to the diaconate, let's see here. I was just looking for kind of a quick. You can read more about this whole thing in this article on Wikipedia. I am not an expert on this. One of our viewers, King Sticky Ricky, said, hopefully we get a more traditional pope. Our viewer BG Particle says celibacy is a long-held tradition, but it is not doctrine. But our viewer Perny said, King Sticky Ricky, Francis was very traditional. Brad Morris says, hopefully the next pope is younger. The AP article we were looking at said that some cardinals might not want to elect a young pope because they might not want to commit to somebody who's going to rule for a really long time, which is very interesting. By the way, I owe a couple of thank yous here. Thank you so much to Captain Jerry Donnelly, who said in 1978 there were 3 popes. Is that true? I don't remember. Or either that or I just don't know. I'm looking it up on Wikipedia right now. John Paul I, John Paul II, and St. Paul VI, yes, were all pope in 1978. John Paul I was pope for 33 days. Hold on, I'll show you this. John Paul I was head of the Catholic Church for 33 days. He died 33 days after after becoming pope. His reign is among the shortest in papal history, giving rise to the most recent year of 3 popes, the first since 1605. He was the most recent Italian-born pope, the last in a succession of such popes that started with Clement, if I'm pronouncing that right, 7 in 1523. Anyways, that's interesting. Yes, the local time, as one of our viewers just said, Stuffy Puff, was it? It is 2:51 p.m. in Vatican City. Mike Prozac says Benedict IX was elected 3 times. Is that true? How is that possible? This is in like a... He was the only person to have been pope more than once, says Wikipedia, Pope Benedict IX. He resigned and then he had second thoughts and returned. It's according to Wikipedia. Benedict IX, according to Wikipedia, is also the only person ever accused of selling the papacy. That was back like in the 11th century. You can look it up, Benedict IX, if you want to read more about that. Hey, thanks to Saddam Hussein, who thinks Cardinal Sarah would be a good pope. We saw him on that AP list of possible popes. Here is, I'm probably going to pronounce it wrong. You'll see a picture of Robert Sarah, who is the from Guinea, right? He has been mentioned as a possible candidate for the papacy, says Wikipedia. By international media have mentioned him. Our viewer, Patty, says, what horrible news to wake up to. I'm so sad. He was a great man. The world lost a marvelous man. R.I.P. Pope Francis. By the way, thanks to our member, Debbie James. Let me try to get you some updates on this story, by the way. As you look at a live shop of St. Peter's Square. I'm looking up, the internet seems to say that there have been African popes. I'm seeing some articles about this, but I don't know that there's been a black pope. There's a couple articles that say that there were African popes who were possibly black. This is like a while ago. There's one African pope, I guess, Pope Victor I, who served from between 189 and 199. Anyways, I'm not going to get into that right now in detail because I don't know anything about it, but something you might want to look up. So I guess, in theory, there have been African popes, but maybe none of them have been black. Is that the idea? That's what I'm seeing. Why does it have to be racial? It doesn't have to be racial. Some people might be interested, so I was just commenting on it. In the same way that people comment on Pope Francis being the first Latin American pope, I mean, that might not be important to some people, but for some people it is. Oh, by the way, thanks to Debbie James for the memberships. Thank you, Debbie. Martin Wiedebrand sent me a link to some site that I guess is a gambling site. I don't even know what this site is. Oh, is it Ladbrokes? Is that what it is? I don't know. Or is it OLBG? I don't even know. Anyways, I'm looking at a gambling site. I don't know, who are they quoting? Oh, they're saying it's at William Hill. Does what's it called? What's the name of that gambling site? Anyways, I guess you can bet on who the next pope will be. What's the one that we sometimes look at, the gambling site? Somebody, Polymarket, yes. As our viewers said, a couple of our viewers. Who said that there? Dennis Abum? Let's see here. You can. So, just in case you want to look, this is not they don't sponsor the channel. I don't believe. I'm not sure. I think it may be the case that you're not allowed to bet on them in the U.S. legally, that they're in the U.S. legally, but you can research it yourself. But just out of interest, news value, I'm going to show their page, Polymarket, where Polymarket is a online gambling site where you can bet on things. And what you'll see in a second is they have thank you, Martin Wiedebrand, for mentioning the idea of this. They have a who will be the next pope site. And the two favorites that they have right now, well, I mean, the favorites are just, these favorites depend on who's, just as money comes in on different people, their odds will go up. So it's just based on the betting activity. The favorites are Pietro Parolin and Luis Antonio Tegal. Now, were they in that AP article, Parolin and Tegal? Oh, we just saw that one change. Yes, so this article from AP, who are the contenders? So they say, there's Parolin, and is Tegal on this list too? Yes, Tegal. So let's read about Parolin and Tegal. Parolin, 70 years old, of Italy, has been Francis's Secretary of State since 2014 and is considered one of the main contenders to be Pope, given his prominence in the Catholic hierarchy. The veteran diplomat oversaw the Holy See's controversial deal with China over bishop nominations and was involved but not charged in the Vatican's botched investment in London real estate venture that led to a trial of a cardinal and 9 others. A former ambassador to Venezuela, Parolin knows the Latin American church well. He would be seen as someone who would continue in Francis's tradition, but as a more sober and timid diplomatic insider, returning in Italian to the papacy after 3 successive outsiders, St. John Paul II, Poland, Benedict, Germany, and Francis, Argentina. But while Parolin has managed the Vatican bureaucracy, he has no real pastoral experience. His ties to the London scandal, in which his office lost tens of millions of dollars to bad deals and shady businessmen, could count against him. That's Pietro Parolin. Do we have a picture of him here? Let's see. That's Tegal. There's some pictures of Tegal. That's Tegal. There's Parolin right there coming up. That's the Vatican Secretary of State Parolin. So over on Polymarket, he is the current betting favorite, right? Parolin, look, you'll see in a second. He's at 39%. And the second place on Polymarket right now is Tegal, 34% chance. And if we go back to the article, I'm going to show you a picture of Tegal. There's Tegal. Let's read about Tegal. Tegal is of the Philippines. He would appear to be Francis's pick for the first Asian pope, says AP. Francis brought the popular Archbishop of Manila to Rome to head the Vatican's missionary evangelization office, which serves the needs of the Catholic Church in much of Asia and Africa. His role took on a greater weight when Francis reformed the Vatican bureaucracy and raised the importance of his evangelization office. Tegal often cites his Chinese lineage. His maternal grandmother was part of a Chinese family that moved to the Philippines and is known for becoming emotional when discussing his childhood. Although he has pastoral, Vatican, and management experience, he headed the Vatican's Caritas Internationalis Federation of charity groups before coming to Rome permanently. Tegal would be on the young side to be elected pope for life, with cardinals perhaps preferring an older candidate whose papacy would be more limited. Interesting. So Cardinal Tegal of the Philippines on Polymarket is the number 2 choice. Remember, though, it is common for popes to be elected recently who were not high on the expected new pope list. Anyone trying to handicap the outcome, says AP, should remember that Jorge Mario Bergoglio, who became Pope Francis, was considered too old to be elected in 2013 at age 76, and that the man who became Pope John Paul II, Karol, I'm never going to say this, Wojtyla, was not on any front-runner list going into the 1978 conclave. Interesting. Mark says, I think Cardinal Sarah will win. One of our viewers said, Schnitzel said, wait for the white smoke now. Well, they haven't started the conclave yet. That doesn't start for a little while. I think maybe weeks. I need to look it up. Is there an interim pope? There is someone who's in charge in the interim, because I read that this morning. Let me see here. I'm going to pull up that information because I definitely read it. Where was it? Where was it? Someone knows it already in the chat. I forget. I can't find it right now. Somebody will say it in the chat. Pepito Macondo thinks it's time a black pope takes that seat. Cardinal Robert Sarah would fit that description, who's seen as one of the front runners. If I can get a picture of him right here. Here he is right here. You'll see a picture of him in a second from AP. Cardinal Robert Sarah. And AP says of Cardinal Sarah, they say, he is from Guinea. He is the retired head of the Vatican's liturgy office, was long considered the best hope for an African pope, although I think there have been African popes before. Beloved by conservatives, Sarah would signal a return to the doctrinaire and liturgically minded papacies of John Paul II and Benedict. He has clashed on several occasions with Francis, none more seriously than when he and Benedict co-authored a book advocating the necessity of considered celibacy for Latin Rite priests. That book came out as Francis was weighing whether to allow married priests in the Amazon to address a priest shortage there. So much intrigue and different policies and politics. Again, about 130 or so, what is it, like 135 voting cardinals, and 2/3 of them are needed to pick the next one. Meg Sweet says Sarah is 79, kind of old. I don't think there's an age limit on the actual being elected. Any baptized Catholic male is eligible, says AP. I believe to vote, you need to be under age 80 to vote as a cardinal. AP says the people who vote are the cardinals under age 80. Yeah, we were talking about the movie Conclave early, Joey. I need to see it. I want to see it. We are bringing you some live coverage of this major breaking news that Pope Francis, the head of the Catholic Church, has died at age 88. He died at 7:45 a.m. local time. You're looking at a live shot from St. Peter's Square. Oh, you know what? Did I? Okay. Let me show you a different angle. Maybe we'll show you a different angle from St. Peter's Square. You'll see it pop up in a second. Oh, look, it's other people there. Wait, why is this being weird? Give me a moment here. There we go. That looks like maybe a hand camera on the ground there. Oh, it paused. The shot paused. That shot paused. Well, we got to go back to the other shot then. J.D. Vance met with him yesterday. Just checking somebody if I have any other video I want to show you right now. Yeah, that's it for right now. Let me show you something else though. Oops. Pope Francis, first Latin American pontiff, dies on Easter Monday. We are taking some comments from you guys. Ryan Lowe says, so like a month of mourning, it's a weeks-long process. I don't know the exact dates. I don't even know if the exact dates are out there yet, like when the family will be. Peter Pettigrew said he gave a speech then passed. He did speak yesterday. You know, there's a video here. I should play this video. What is this? Let me play the video from Reuters that goes along with this article for you guys. I'm going to pull it up here and play it. Maybe it shows him yesterday in the video. Hang on. I'm going to play this right now for you. One moment here. One moment. One moment. Here is this Reuters video. Hold on. Get ready. I'm playing it right now. This goes with the article. I think maybe that's the one with no narration. Is there one with narration on it? I want the video with narration. Audio natural. Oh, okay. So that actually is. All right, that is his appearance. There's no narration, but that actually is his final appearance yesterday. This is video from the Pope's. This is the Pope's appearance yesterday. That's what I'm showing you in this video. This is just yesterday. It says, the video, it says, Pope Francis, where is it here? A day before he died, he appeared on the balcony overlooking St. Peter's Square to deliver a special blessing. So this is from Reuters. This is that, you'll see it in a second here. This is literally video of him yesterday in his I believe it's his last public appearance. So I just wanted to show that. Oops, hang on a moment here. Is there another thing here? What else is this? Oh, there's another video. Hey, I have another video I'm going to show you right now about this from Reuters. Let's take a look at this one. Video number 2.
Carissimi fratelli et sorelle.
Let me put it on the screen for you. Hopefully I got the wrong, did I pick the right one for you? Let me make sure here. Oh yeah, this should be correct. This should be the right one. All right, let's check this one out. Here we go. Let's play it here for you.
Carissimi fratelli et sorelle.
Dear brothers and sisters,
Con profondo dolore devo annunciare la morte del nostro Santo Padre Francesco.
it is with profound sadness I must announce the death of our Holy Father Francis.
7:35
At 7:35 this morning, the Bishop of Rome, Francis, returned to the house of the Father.
tornato alla casa del Padre. La sua vita tutta intera
His entire life was dedicated to the service of the Lord and His Church.
e della sua Chiesa. Ci ha insegnato
He taught us to live the values of the Gospel with fidelity, courage, and universal love.
coraggio e amore universale. In modo particolare
Especially in favor of the poorest and marginalized.
ed emarginati. Con immensa gratitudine
With immense gratitude for his example of a true disciple of the Lord Jesus, we commend the soul of Pope Francis to the infinite merciful love of the triune God.
Papa Francesco all'infinito amore misericordioso di Dio uno e trino. Grazie.
That was the announcement of his death right there, via Reuters. By the way, let me just thank a couple people here. Then we'll get to some more comments from you guys. Oh, thank you, Unleashed Pokegamer, who sent me a trailer for Conclave. Thank you for sending that along. I believe I've seen the trailer before. I just don't remember it. I can't play that on the air. I don't have the rights to it. But I do want to watch it. Thank you, Unleashed Pokegamer. I really appreciate your support. Also, thanks to our members, Mika Chan, who says, "Rest in peace, Pope Francis, and confidence in God," who is a Catholic. Thank you. Debbie James, our member. Let me shout out our moderators. I really appreciate them being here. Oh, thanks, Tony Baloney, who says, "God rest his soul." Let me thank our moderators who are here. I really appreciate them being here. Beth Mythical, Ruth Krafasi, as we are on this morning to do some coverage of this. Kay Lowry Body over on Facebook. Thank you. And Linda Belk, Misha, Larry, who moderate for us on X, over on Twitch. Let me show the video for a second here from Vatican City. Big Ball of Yarn, David Green, LB Prairie Dawn, Surly Dev, over there, moderating on Twitch. And thanks also to, hold on a second, what did I do here? What did I do? Oh, hold on. Something is missing here. Why is that missing? Hang on. There's something I'm looking at the Twitch. My Twitch page is a little messed up because normally I can see something and I can't see it. So let me see if I can fix that real quick over there on Twitch. Where is it? That's what I have. That's what I need to do. Ah, I got it. Thanks. Let me just change. Let me just fix one thing here. That. Okay. 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 Hey, a quick thank you, by the way, to. Where did it go? What happened here? Hang on. Shout out to, hold on, let me just do this. Gosh. Why is my Twitch page is all messed up? I had it set up the way I wanted to, and now it's all messed up. Now it's all messed up. Well, that's better. Okay. Thank you, by the way, to Dark Crypto for your support on Twitch. I think I fixed it. Nope. Everything was all messed up. Now what's happening? Okay, we're back. It was just Easter yesterday. A says, "May Lord have mercy on his soul." As an A point out, the VP met with him yesterday. I think recently also the VP met with somebody else from the Vatican, but he met with the Pope yesterday. Dren Crow says media were just saying that Francis had been out of the hospital for a month yesterday, then he dies the next day. Our viewer Daniel L. says praying for a more conservative traditionalist pope. May Francis rest in peace, but his radical ideologies strayed many Catholics away from the church. He is known as being less doctrinaire and less traditional than some others. Tony Baloney says we do not worship the Pope. We respect him as we do not worship the Pope. We respect him as the head of the Catholic Church. .586 Smoker says it's filling in there more and more. I also don't know like how this works. I mean, how many people are in that area who you would expect to just show up there? I don't know what access is like there and how easy it is for people to get there. I have no idea. Somebody was commenting on they thought there would be more people in the square, but I don't know how many people you would normally expect there for when something like this happens. It's an interesting question. Let me just tell you a little bit about what Reuters said about this. Let me show you something real quick. You can see they say first Latin American pontiff dies on Easter Monday. And they said that Pope Francis, the first Latin American leader of the Roman Catholic Church, has died, ending an often turbulent reign marked by division as he sought to overhaul the hidebound institution. He was 88. He had suffered a serious bout of double pneumonia this year, but his death came as a shock after he had been driven around St. Peter's Square in an open-air Pope-mobile to Greek greeting crowds on Easter Sunday, just yesterday. By the way, Cardinal Kevin Farrell will preside over a rite at 8 p.m. tonight local time, which I believe is 1 p.m. Central Time. So that's about 4.5 hours from now. About 4.5 hours from now, there will be a rite where the Pope's body will be placed into a casket, part of the formalities that will culminate in a funeral at a date to be confirmed. So the Pope's body will be placed in a casket in a rite in about 4.5 hours. The Vatican said a ceremony planned for Sunday, April 27th, when Carlo Acutis was to become the first Catholic saint of the millennial generation, has been postponed. Francis yesterday had made his first prolonged public appearance since being discharged from the hospital on March 23rd from a 38-day stay for pneumonia. Interesting. At the Vatican, says Reuters, locals, tourists, and pilgrims waiting for Easter expressed their shock and grief. Reuters said that doctors had prescribed 2 months of rest when the Pope left the hospital last month, but he appeared on a number of occasions and met Britain's King Charles in April and had a brief meeting yesterday with visiting U.S. Vice President J.D. Vance. Vance said on X, "My heart goes out to the millions of Christians all over the world who loved him." The Italian Prime Minister called him a great man, a great shepherd. He had a 12-year papacy. He was elected in 2013. Reuters says, surprising many church watchers who had seen the Argentine cleric, known for his concern for the poor, as an outsider. He sought to project simplicity into the grand role and never took possession of the ornate papal apartments in the apostolic palace. How do you say it? Apostolic palace used by his predecessors, saying he preferred to live in a community setting for his psychological health. He initiated changes within the Vatican, emphasizing transparency, accountability, and financial reform, and appointed more women to senior posts in its hierarchy. However, he was also viewed as a haphazard leader, often blindsiding Vatican officials with his off-the-cuff comments, says Reuters. He struggled to get a grip on the Church's crisis over sexual abuse by clerics, and he inherited a church torn by infighting in the Vatican bureaucracy and was elected with a clear mandate to restore order. But as his papacy progressed, he faced criticism from conservatives who accused him of trashing cherished traditions. He also drew the ire of progressives who felt he should have done much more to reshape the 2,000-year-old church. Interesting. While he struggled with internal dissent, Francis became a global superstar, drawing huge crowds on his many foreign travels as he tirelessly promoted interfaith dialogue and peace, taking the side of the marginalized, such as migrants. Let's see here. Francis appointed nearly 80% of the cardinal electors who will choose the next pope, increasing the possibility that his successor will continue his progressive policies despite the strong pushback from traditionalists. That's very interesting. By the way, only a pope can appoint cardinals. And the cardinals are the ones who elect the next pope. And I believe it has now been hundreds of years that the pope has been a cardinal. Yes, according to AP, a cardinal has been the pope since 1378. Joe McFarland says, in other words, this pope did not like extremism. He is known as a reformer. So let me tell you a little bit about his reforms. This is from the AP story. Francis was elected on a mandate to reform the Vatican bureaucracy and finances, but went further in shaking up the church without changing its core doctrine. He once said famously, "Who am I to judge?" when he was asked about a purportedly gay priest. That comment sent a message of welcome to the LGBTQ+ community and those who felt shunned by a church that had stressed sexual propriety over unconditional love. He told AP, Pope Francis, he told AP in 2023, being homosexual is not a crime, urging an end to civil laws that criminalize it. Stressing mercy, Francis changed the church's position on the death penalty, calling it inadmissible in all circumstances. He also declared the possession of nuclear weapons, and not just their use, was immoral. In other firsts, he approved an agreement with China over bishop nominations that had vexed the Vatican for decades, met the Russian patriarch, and charted new relations with the Muslim world by visiting the Arabian Peninsula and Iraq. He reaffirmed the all-male celibate priesthood and upheld the church's opposition to abortion, equating it to hiring a hitman to solve a problem. But he added women to important decision-making roles and allowed them to serve as lectors and acolytes in parishes. He let women vote alongside bishops in periodic Vatican meetings, following long-standing complaints that women do much of the church's work but are barred from power. Um, He emphasized, says AP, that the church should be a refuge for everyone. Todos, todos, todos. Everywhere, everyone, 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 he said, I guess, according to AP. Migrants, the poor, prisoners, and outcasts were invited to his table far more than presidents or powerful CEOs. Pope Francis demanded his bishops apply mercy and charity to their flocks, pressed the world to protect God's creation from climate disaster, and challenged countries to welcome those fleeing war, poverty, and oppression. While progressives were thrilled with Francis's radical focus While progressives were thrilled with Pope Francis's radical focus on Jesus' message of mercy and inclusion, it troubled conservatives who feared that he watered down Catholic teaching and threatened the very Christian identity of the West. Some even called him a heretic, says AP. He made it easier for married Catholics to get an annulment, allowed priests to absolve women who had had abortions, and decreed that priests could bless same-sex couples. He opened debate on issues like homosexuality and divorce, giving pastors wiggle room to discern how to accompany their flocks rather than handing them strict rules to apply. He lived in the Vatican Hotel instead of the Apostolic Palace, wore his old orthodox shoes and not the red loafers of the papacy, and rode in compact cars. It wasn't a gimmick, says AP. If becoming the first Latin American and first Jesuit pope weren't enough, Francis also was the first to name himself after Saint Francis of Assisi, the 13th century friar known for personal simplicity and care for nature and society's outcasts. Is it Assisi? He consistently chose to visit poor countries where Christians were often persecuted minorities, rather than the centers of global Catholicism, says AP. Something else to mention here that AP mentions, missteps on sexual abuse scandal. But more than a year More than a year passed before Francis met with survivors of priestly sexual abuse, and victims groups initially questioned whether he really understood the scope of the problem. Francis did create a sex abuse commission to advise the church on best practices, but it lost influence after a few years, and its recommendation of a tribunal to judge bishops who covered up for predator priests went nowhere. And then came the greatest crisis of his papacy, says AP, when he discredited Chilean abuse victims in 2018 and stood by a controversial bishop linked to their abuser. Realizing his error, he invited the victims to the Vatican for a personal mea culpa and summoned the leadership of the Chilean church to resign en masse. As that crisis concluded, a new one erupted over ex-Cardinal Theodore McCarrick, the retired Archbishop of Washington and a counselor to 3 popes. Francis had actually moved swiftly to sideline McCarrick amid an accusation that he had molested a teenage altar boy in the 1970s, but Francis nevertheless was accused by the Vatican's one-time U.S. ambassador of having rehabilitated McCarrick early in his papacy. Francis eventually defrocked McCarrick after a Vatican investigation determined he sexually abused adults as well as minors. Francis changed church law to remove the pontifical secrets surrounding abuse cases and enacted procedures to investigate bishops who abused or covered for their pedophile priests, seeking to end impunity for the hierarchy. AP says also, conservatives turned away from Francis betrayed after he opened debate on allowing remarried Catholics to receive the sacraments if they didn't get an annulment. a church ruling that their first marriage was invalid. Italy's conservative daily paper Il Foglio said, "We don't like this pope," a few months into the papacy, reflecting the unease of the small but vocal traditionalist Catholic movement. These same critics amplified their complaints after Francis approved church blessings for same-sex couples and a controversial accord with China over nominating bishops. Its details were never released, but conservative critics bashed it as a sellout to communist China, while the Vatican defended it as the best deal it could get with Beijing. Let me take some comments from you guys. Michael Quinn says he apologized for Catholic Church's role in residential schools in Canada. Is that true? I don't know. Try looking it up here. I'm looking at a story. There's for example, a CBC story from today, but it talks about the Pope apologizing for residential schools during a Canadian visit. This CBC story talks about a Canadian government report about residential schools that about 150,000 Indigenous children were forced to attend over a century in Canada. The Catholic Church ran about 60% of them, and it says a government report described horrific details of physical, emotional, and sexual abuse inflicted on Indigenous children. And there's this article in CBC talking about how he apologized for the Catholic role, the Catholic Church's role in residential schools in 2022 in Canada. Thanks to our viewer for mentioning that. Kuhneberger says, "May God forgive this Pope for his many sins." Sharon Klassen Gosselin says it's a beautiful building there. Melissa Terry, now I don't know anything about this. Melissa Terry, our viewer, says the victims of the residential schools' families want them to release the names of the teachers at the time they were supposed to get a list. I don't think they have yet, so maybe the new pope will be able to get it to them. Thanks, Melissa, for your comment. Sound Mixer says now they have to choose a new pope, maybe someone young for a change. Interestingly, in the AP article talking about possible new pope and who the leading candidates are, although it might not be one of them, they said that maybe the cardinals will not want to choose a younger pope because they might not want to commit to someone who's going to be in office for a very long time, which is an interesting thought. Sylvia S. says 2025 is a year to go to the books. Strumpling says everybody sells out to China, LOL. Let me show you a different view here. Look, a different view. Oh, you'll see it in a second. There's another view from St. Peter's Square. Who will be the new pope? We don't know. We'll have to see, Liam Grogan. Sometimes it ends up being a surprise. Mark says, I hope the next pope is very traditional and conservative. We were talking about some of the leading candidates people thought to be leading candidates earlier. One of the leading candidates is from the Philippines, one is from Guinea, one is from Italy. There's a bunch of them. The AP had an article talking about leading candidates to be pope, leading contenders, and it listed, I think, 7 or 8 of them, maybe more actually. But then they said it's possible it could be none of these people. Yeah, they had 9 of them in their article. Nancy Kimball says, I have been there, and although I'm not Catholic, it was awe-inspiring. It is pretty incredible to have this institution, any kind of institution big institution that's been going on that long. You can go to Wikipedia and see the list of popes. You can see it has an article, list of popes. It starts, Pontiff number 1, year 30 to 64. In the 1st century AD. You just go through. Then it goes all the way down to Francis. 266, Francis. Stormy Wilson says, isn't it 18 to 20 days for all the traditions, and they do the conclave after that? So the date for the funeral hasn't been announced yet. I saw it's expected to take weeks to do all of the the ceremony stuff, the post-death ceremony stuff. Sharon Klassen Gosselin says it is amazing history there. It's so beautiful there. Mark thinks an American pope won't happen. The AP talked about how one of the possible contenders is American, but that maybe the Cardinals would not want to elect an American. Oh, I can show you something about what the church does after the Pope dies. But in terms of that American, AP talked about him and said, Robert Prevost was born in Chicago, but they say the idea of an American pope has long been taboo given the geopolitical power already wielded by the U.S., but the Chicago-born Prevost could be the first. Oh, I have some answers to your questions here. People said, do I have a video of the J.D. Vance visit? I'm guessing I do, but I got to dig it up. I mean, I can clearly find one. I got to see if I can find one I have the rights to. Hang on a second here. Yes, I do. No, that's not it. Where is it here? Yes, I do have that. If it works. Did the White House post it also? Give me a second. I'll check that as well. If not, I can download it. All right, hold on. I need a couple minutes to download the video, but I'll try to pull up the video of J.D. Vance meeting with him. Some of our viewers are mentioning the stock market. Currently, NASDAQ is down 1.6%. Russell is down 1.1%. The Dow is down 1.28%. One of our viewers called this a stock market crash. I don't think it's a stock market crash. It's down a bit. I'll keep an eye on it, though. Oh, I was going to talk about here. Look, this article talked about some of what happens after the Pope dies. So we should discuss this, because I know people have been asking about this. What are the church's rights for the death of a pope and the election of a new one? By the way, I have no idea. Is that where they have the conclave? It says tables and chairs line the Sistine Chapel at the Vatican in preparation for the conclave. Is that where they meet? Wow. I mean, that's like it's known as an artistic masterpiece. And they just meet in there. Is that what it is? Wow. That's something. People are saying yes. I got to download that picture so I can show you guys. Hold on a second here. Tracy says, yes, they meet there. I'm going to download the picture. Hold on. Because that's a cool picture. That's from AP. Now, where is... There. Why is it so small? I've got to make it bigger. Oh, it's going to make it bigger. Here it is. Wow, that's incredible. Here is the photo from AP of the Sistine Chapel. Trying to get it on the screen for you a little better. That's where they have the conclave. Crazy. See the tables and the chairs? Tracy says breathtaking. And then they don't, I mean, the last time they had one of these was 12 years ago. LCS Fox says crazy image. The one and only says it's a very old process. Even the waiters back in the day serving food couldn't get in. It was and still is very secret. Evelyn mentioned the Michelangelo, if I'm pronouncing that art in there, if I'm pronouncing it right. Evelyn Camp said, yes, they meet there. Hold on a second here. All right, I'm definitely going to watch the Conclave, and maybe the movie The Two Popes as well, so I can get a little background. Wikipedia says, the Sistine Chapel's fame lies mainly in the frescoes that decorate its interior, most particularly the Sistine Chapel ceiling and the Last Judgment, both by Michelangelo. Oh, I have an interesting, I have a different video for you. By the way, is this in English or not? Hold on a second. English or Spanish? Hang on one moment here. Give me 1 second. I got to check something out. Okay. Here's a different video. Oh no, that's not. Hold on. Just pulling this up. I'm going to leave this video on right now. I want to show you guys this. We're going to talk about this. I told you we would talk about it. Oops, I don't want the sound on right now. Oh, look at this. Hold on. What am I watching here? Hang on a moment. What am I seeing here? What am I seeing here? Watch this. Here's a new video. Look at this video. Turn the audio on. Are they setting things? Okay, hold on. Let's watch. Turn it down a little bit. They had a shot from the front there. Right? Maybe the next shot. What is this shot coming up right now? This shot right there. See all the people going in? Are people just touring in there? Is that what it is? Are they taking a tour? I don't know. It's an interesting shot. I've never been there before. Some of you have been there. This looks like it's just a loop of different shots there. It's the balcony where we will see the Pope in about 2 weeks, says Raven Knight. I'm going to turn the volume off. It's kind of driving me crazy. Mort says, I've been there and it's very impressive. You can go in the front or in the back if you pay extra, says Unpurged. Hang on. Is that is the building we're looking at St. Peter's Basilica or not? I was trying to figure it out. Is it? Is that St. Peter's Basilica we're looking at? I think it is. Our viewer DS says yes, it is. Bab says yes. Yeah, several of our viewers are saying yes. Hannah Banana says yes. Let me go back to the other video, which is the same building, but you see the dome. Yes, it is Vatican City. That's one of our viewers just said. Mama 457 Rose said he looked terrible yesterday. His days were few. I think I have the video from yesterday. Hold on a second here. Hang on. That's not what I want to show you. Where is the video from yesterday? Is there audio on this video? Once again, I can't hear anything. Once again, but I can show you. I can show you guys. Hey guys, I'm going to show you a video with no audio, but it's of the meeting. It's an AFP video from the J.D. Vance visit yesterday, okay? So this is from J.D. Vance yesterday visiting the Pope. Oops, I got to get it on the screen for you. Hold on. All right, this is J.D. Vance visiting the Pope yesterday. Sorry, there's no audio on it, but you'll see the video. There he is. That's him visiting the Pope yesterday. I mean, it's not like the Pope is bedridden. He's nodding. He's moving around. I wish we could hear the video, but that's a different story. I'll have to deal with that. I'm trying to get that issue fixed. With some of these videos I download and I can't hear anything. But this is video from that visit yesterday. It was a brief meeting, by the way. There you go. That was it. Oh, by the way, thank you to thanks so much to Aaron Easton. Hey, Aaron, I appreciate that. Thank you so much, Aaron, for your support of the channel. Thanks also, Dodger Blue. I really appreciate that. And also, hang on a moment here. I keep saying I'm going to get to this. Let me show you something here. You'll see it in a second. What are the church's rights for the death of a pope and the election of a new one? From AP. Let's talk about this for a second. The death of a pope starts a centuries-old ritual involving sacred oaths by the cardinals electing a successor. The piercing of ballots with a needle and thread after they're counted, and then burning them to produce either the white or black smoke to signal if there's a new leader for the world's 1.3 billion Catholics. How about that? The election itself is shrouded in secrecy, with cardinals forbidden from communicating with the outside world what happened during the voting in the conclave behind the frescoed walls of the Sistine Chapel. While there were some leaps of artistic license, the process is in many ways as it is depicted in the Oscar-winning film Conclave. I need to watch Conclave. Maybe I'll do it when I get back from... my trip is coming to a close here in Lima, Peru, so I'll do it when I get back. St. John Paul, maybe I can download it for the plane ride. We'll see if I can... one of the services I subscribe to has it. St. John Paul II rewrote the regulations on papal elections in 1996, a 1996 document that remains largely in force. Here is what happens when a pope dies, a period known as the sede vacante, or the vacant see. Let's talk about this. By the way, thanks to Mama 457 Rose. I really appreciate your support. So AP says, who is in charge? After the Pope has died, the Camerlengo, or Chamberlain, must certify the death and seal the papal apartment. He runs administrative and financial duties of the Holy See until a new Pope takes over. The largely ceremonial job of Camerlengo is currently held by Cardinal Kevin Farrell, the Irish-born American head of the Vatican's Laity Office, who also announced the death on Monday morning. Nearly all prefects of Vatican offices lose their jobs when a pope dies, but a few stay on, including the foreign minister and the master of liturgical ceremonies, who plays a key role in assembling the conclave. The dean of the College of Cardinals summons the cardinals for the funeral, presiding at the mass before the conclave begins. By the way, there are roughly 250 cardinals, and roughly 135 of them can vote, I believe, in the election. Let's see here. Francis has chosen to be buried in St. Mary Major Basilica outside the Vatican, which is where his favorite icon of the Virgin Mary, the Salus Populi Romani, is located. What is the timing? The death of the Pope begins a precise sequence of events that includes the confirmation of death in the pontiff's home, the transfer of the coffin to St. Peter's Basilica for public viewing, a funeral mass, and burial. Interment, it says interment, shouldn't be, hold on a second here. Yeah, interment must, if I'm pronouncing that right, I never say that word. Interment, yes, must take place between the 4th and 6th day after his death. So he must be buried 4 to 6 days after his death. After the funeral, there are 9 days of official mourning known as the Novendiali. During this period, the cardinals arrive in Rome. To give everyone time to assemble, the conclave must begin 15 to 20 days after the sede vacante is declared, although it can start sooner if the cardinals agree. So in roughly 15 to 20 days, if I'm reading this right, sede vacante is the period after the Pope dies. So roughly 15 to 20 days after the Pope dies is when you have the conclave. Who can elect a Pope? AP says, only cardinals under age 80 are eligible to vote. Current regulations notionally limit the number of electors to 120, but popes have often exceeded that ceiling. According to the most recently updated Vatican statistics, there were 135 cardinals under age 80 and eligible to vote. Cardinals over age 80 cannot vote but can be elected pope. Those over age 80 can't vote but also can participate in pre-conclave meetings known as general congregations in which church problems are discussed. Who are possible candidates? Any baptized Roman Catholic male is eligible to be pope, but since 1378, only cardinals have been selected. Some current leading candidates include Cardinal Pietro Parolin of Italy, 70, Francis, Secretary of State and veteran Vatican diplomat, I believe on Polymarket right now, which is a betting site. On Polymarket, the current favorite is Pietro Parolin with 37% odds, and Luis Antonio Tagle, originally of the Philippines, I believe, is 31%. Pietro Parolin is Italian. There's a number of others there. That's on Polymarket. It's a gambling site. But just going over some of the other candidates that AP mentions, it could be somebody who's not one of the leading candidates. Cardinal Mark Ouellet of Canada, 80, head of the Vatican's bishop's office from 2010 to 2023. Cardinal Christoph Schönborn of Austria, 80, a student of Pope Benedict XV and thus ostensibly having appeal for conservatives. Cardinal Luis Tagle of the Philippines, 67, brought by Francis to head the Vatican's massive missionary office. Cardinal Matteo Zuppi of Italy, 69, a Francis protege who headed the Italian Bishops' Conference. How are the votes taken in the conclave? AP says a first ballot is held in the Sistine Chapel on the afternoon after the initial Mass. If no pope is elected over the ensuing days, 2 ballots are held each morning and 2 each afternoon, so 4 a day. The ballots are rectangular pieces of paper with the words Eligo and Sumim Pontificem, I elect as Supreme Pontiff, written at the top, with a space for a name. Each cardinal makes his choice, folds the paper in half, walks to the front of the chapel and declares, I call as my witness Christ the Lord, who will be my judge, that my vote is given to the one who before God I think should be elected. He then puts the ballot on a tray and tips it into a receptacle. 3 designated cardinals, known as scrutineers, check each ballot to see if it is filled out correctly. Each name is read aloud and counted, with the results announced to the conclave after each round. If no one gets the needed 2/3 of votes, the ballots are pierced with a needle and thread, which is then knotted and placed in a tray, and another round of voting is prepared. Interestingly, John Paul in 1996 said a pope could be elected by a majority if voting was stalemated, but Pope Benedict got rid of that and said it has to be a 2/3 majority always. What about secrecy? Pope Benedict tightened the oath of secrecy in the conclave, making clear that anyone who reveals what went on inside faces automatic excommunication. Wow. Liturgical assistants and secretaries take an oath saying they must observe absolute and perpetual secrecy and explicitly refrain from using any audio or video recording devices. Cardinals are also bound by secrecy, although the threat of excommunication only hangs over them explicitly if they are found to have accepted. Oh, it's a little confusing here. It says cardinals are bound by secrecy, although the threat of excommunication only hangs over them explicitly if they are found to have accepted payment for their vote, allowed secular powers to influence it, or entered into pacts with other cardinals to back a candidate. I guess maybe different people have different that have different punishments for not keeping the secrecy of the process, possibly. Anyways, I'm not sure about all that. It's a little confusing in the passage. After the ballots are pierced, they are burned in a cylindrical stove at the end of the voting session. Black smoke from the Sistine Chapel means no decision. White smoke signals the cardinals have chosen a pope and he has accepted. Chemical cartridges are added to ensure there is no confusion over the color. To produce black smoke, a cartridge containing potassium perchlorate, anthracene, the component of coal tar, and sulfur is burned with the ballots. For white smoke, a cartridge of potassium chlorate, lactose, and chloroform resin is burned with the ballots. Bells are also rung to signal the election of a pope for further clarity. The new pope is introduced from the loggia overlooking St. Peter's Square with the words, Habernis Papum, we have a pope, and his chosen papal name. The new pope then emerges and gives his first blessing. Well, how about that? That is the process to come. Interesting. Ron Stahlcup says like a gender reveal. I don't think I'm going to be on the air 24 hours a day waiting to see all the smoke. But maybe Mike Prozac said that'll be interesting to watch. I'm guessing there'll be a live cam somewhere. I'm not going to be broadcasting it the entire time. But if I can catch it, if I'm around and I catch it, maybe we'll go live when that happens. I'd like to. Chihuahua Verde says it's a very interesting process. Evelyn and Maine says interesting indeed. So it sounds like they start voting 4 times a day. Otto says they must vote for a young pope, but I think that is not possible. I think Otto is saying he hopes for a young pope. Bastion Girl says the Conclave was a very good movie. Strumpling says you'll go live when the smoke changes. To white, you mean? Hey, thanks Oliver Hernandez, our member. John says, are we going to be discussing any controversies surrounding the church? Early in the stream, we talked about some of the different controversies. We talked about, for example, some of the child abuse or sexual abuse and sexual abuse controversies. We talked about those earlier. Thank you to our member Jackie Morgan. And Oren Quake says, I think they can vote for themselves. I'm looking it up right now. I'm seeing some websites that say, hold on a second here. Some of you probably know this. Where am I looking here? Where was I going to check this here? Yeah, Tori says, are you still in Peru? Yes. I was talking about this earlier. I'm still in Peru for just a little while longer. I'm at the end of my trip, basically. But Peru is a very Catholic country. So 75% of it is Catholic, from my understanding. So as I'm out and about later today, I'll have to see maybe I'll try to see how people are reacting. I don't know how different it'll be, if I'll notice it or maybe hear people talking about it. Now, I'm reading on Google AI. According to Google AI, they claim that a cardinal cannot vote for themselves. I don't know that for a fact, though. I'll have to check some sources. Raven Knight says they can't. I don't know. Is the funeral going to be public or private? I also don't know that, Avatarks. That I don't know. It's a good question. Let me check a couple things here. Mama 457 Rose says public. Everybody in the chat is saying public. Here's something from, what is this? Oh, I have a video about what happens after the Pope dies, by the way. I'm going to show you that. What happens now after the death of Pope Francis? This is from Reuters. Let's check out this video from Reuters. Hold on a second here. How is a pope chosen? From Reuters. Let's check it out. I assume there's narration on this.
Behind me is St. Peter's Basilica, the center of Catholicism and the largest church in the world. It's also the place where people will flock when the Pope dies in order to say their goodbyes. So, what happens next? This is Cardinal Kevin Farrell. He's the Camerlengo of the Global Catholic Church. It's his job to confirm the Pope's death. In the past centuries, this was done by tapping the late Pope's head with a silver hammer to see if he would awaken. But now they'll likely just do normal medical checks. Once the death is confirmed, Cardinal Farrell becomes the temporary leader of the Vatican, the world's smallest state, until a new Pope is elected. Cardinal Farrell's first job leading the Vatican is to seal the late Pope's apartment. He then has to tell the cardinals about the Pope's death. From that moment, the Vatican is considered under a sede vacante, an empty see. The Pope's throne is empty. The Vatican's coat of arms changes to reflect an empty see. The Pope's bishop's hat is removed from the coat of arms, and the cardinals are now in charge of the global Catholic Church. The late Pope's body will be placed in a casket and brought to St. Peter's Basilica, where people around the world can pay their respects. The Pope's funeral is normally held here in St. Peter's Square, 4 to 6 days after his death. World leaders will likely converge on Rome for the event, along with thousands of Catholics to say their goodbyes. About 91 previous popes have been buried here in St. Peter's Basilica, but Pope Francis has asked to be buried in Rome's Basilica of Santa Maria Maggiore. Pope Francis simplified the rites for a papal funeral. He asked to be buried in a simple zinc-lined wood coffin, unlike previous popes who were buried in 3 interlocking caskets of cypress, oak, and lead. The conclave to elect a new pope starts in the Sistine Chapel, about 15 to 20 days after the pope's death. All cardinals under age 80 can take part in the secret balloting. They take an oath to maintain confidentiality and must stay completely out of contact with the outside world. Voting for the new pope can last several days, and they need a majority of 2/3 plus 1 to elect the new pope. Once the verdict is in, the new pope is asked if he accepts and what name he would like to take. The cardinals burn their ballots after each vote in the conclave, and the smoke can be seen from a chimney above the Sistine Chapel. Special chemicals are used to change the color of the smoke. Black for a failed vote, white when a new pope has been elected. A senior cardinal will then appear on the central balcony of St. Peter's Basilica, announcing to the crowd below, Habemus Papam, we have a pope.
Interesting. Interesting video from Reuters there. As they say, the conclave starts 15 to 20 days after the death. A couple of our viewers are mentioning, drawing a comparison to a gender reveal. Like Eschel did that. Interesting. So I guess do people sit out there, stand out there the entire conclave time, just waiting for the smoke? That's kind of what the videos seem to be suggesting, that there's people who just stand out in St. Peter's Square just waiting for the smoke. Yeah, Austin Batman says, looking forward to watching the voting ceremony on Agenda Free TV. Nope, it's secret, totally secret. People are saying yes. Kathy and Jacqueline say yes. Jacqueline, they say yes, people stand out there and wait for the votes. I think there's 4 votes a day. That's interesting. Oh, there's another interesting video too. I'm about to show you something else here. We talked a little bit about this before. Pope Francis shook up church with his simplicity, raising conservative ire. Reuters says that Pope Francis changed the face of the modern papacy more than any predecessor by shunning much of its pomp and privilege. But his attempts to make the Catholic Church more inclusive and less judgmental made him an enemy to conservatives nostalgic for a traditional past. How about that? The conservative-progressive gap, it says Francis inherited a deeply divided church, but the conservative-progressive gap became a chasm after Francis from Argentina was elected the first non-European pope in 1,300 years. The first non-European pope in 1,300 years. The polarization was fiercest in the U.S., where conservative Catholicism often blended with well-financed right-wing politics and media outlets, says Reuters. The intensity of conservative animosity to the Pope was laid bare in January 2023, when it emerged that the late Australian Cardinal George Pell, a towering figure in the conservative movement and a Benedict ally, Benedict was the Pope before Francis, he was the author of an anonymous memo in 2022 that condemned Francis' papacy as a catastrophe. That memo amounted to a conservative manifesto of the qualities conservatives will want in the next pope. But Francis, by the way, appointed nearly 80% of the cardinal electors who will choose the next pope, increasing but not guaranteeing the possibility that his successor will continue his progressive policies. Some Vatican experts have predicted a more moderate, less divisive successor. Interesting. Reuters says. Under his watch, an overhauled Vatican constitution allowed any baptized lay Catholic, including women, to head most departments in the Catholic Church's central administration. He put more women in senior Vatican roles than any previous pope, but not as many as progressives wanted. Conservatives were unhappy with the Pope from the start because of his informal style, says Reuters, his aversion to pomp, and his decision to allow women and Muslims to take part in a Holy Thursday ritual that previously had been restricted to Catholic men. Conservatives balked at his calls for the church to be more welcoming to LGBT people. his approval of conditional blessings for same-sex couples in December 2023, and his repeated clampdowns on the use of the traditional Latin Mass. He said conservatives had made themselves self-referential and wanted to encase Catholicism in a suit of armor. Francis's papacy, by the way, conservatives were also rattled by Francis's decision to declare capital punishment inadmissible in all cases, his frequent attacks on the arms industry, and his calls for the abolition of nuclear weapons. But liberals were also deeply disappointed in 2020 when Francis dismissed a proposal to allow some married men to be ordained in remote areas such as the Amazon. Francis's papacy was also marked by the struggle to restore credibility to a church rattled to its core by clergy sexual abuse scandals, even though the overwhelming part of the crimes took place before his election. He was, by the way, from Argentina. He took the name Francis in honor of Francis of Assisi, the saint associated with peace, concern with the poor, and respect for the environment. In his first appearance, Pope Francis shunned the crimson fur-trimmed mozzetta or cape and also did not wear a gold cross, but kept round his neck the same faded silver-plated one he used as Archbishop of Buenos Aires. Gone too were the plush red shoes of the fishermen used by his predecessors. He kept the same simple black shoes he always used and wore $20 plastic watches, giving some away so they could be auctioned off for charity. He lived modestly. Inside the tiny city-state, where some cardinals lived like princes in frescoed apartments, Francis renounced the spacious papal apartments in the Apostolic Palace and never moved out of the Vatican Hotel, where he and other cardinals who entered the conclave of 2013 were billeted in simple rooms. The bulletproof papal limousine was dispatched to the Vatican museums, and Francis took to being driven around Rome in a blue Ford Focus with no security features, says Reuters. Let me read some comments here. Our viewer, NY Committee, says Pope Francis seemed like a good man. I liked him. Kiltridge says, very humble man. Glam Girl says, he sounds like a man with a very kind spirit. Bab says, in Argentina, the Pope's home country, 7 days of national mourning have been declared. I haven't seen that myself, but I wouldn't be surprised if something like that is the case. J. Trem, if I'm reading that right, thinks the next pope is going to be more Trump-like. Nisha says they should have let him rest for longer. His condition was no joke. Well, I don't know if they didn't let him rest, because I read an article, one of the articles I read before, I think, said that he was advised to rest for 2 months after getting out of the hospital. But my guess is maybe that was his choice, although I'm not sure. I would think he had a say in whether to schedule things. Maybe he wanted to do these appearances. By the way, I do have a video that goes with that article about him. The article that says, Pope Francis shook up church with simplicity, raising conservative ire. Let's check out that video on him. That looks interesting. From Reuters. They call me, Taj says, sounds boring to rest for months. Hey, thanks so much to Geraldine Friedrich. She says the U.S. Conference of Catholic Bishops has the most accurate information on how a pope is chosen. We actually watched a little video and talked about it, and we talked about it with an article too. But maybe that has more information, what Geraldine mentioned. Maybe I'll check that out later. Thank you, Geraldine Friedrich, for the recommendation and for your support. I appreciate that, Geraldine. American Girl says, I don't agree with everything the Pope supported. Deb thinks he passed yesterday. Well, the official announcement was that he died at 7:45 a.m. this morning. Hold on. We have a little video for you here. Is this the one? No, that's the other one. Where's the new video? Let's see. Oh, here it is.
Pope Francis, nearly a decade later.
Hold on a second. I'm about to play a video for you. Give me a moment here. I'm going to get it on the screen for you. This is from Reuters. It's from the article we were just looking at. Here it is. About Pope Francis, I believe. I think it's about how he upset some conservatives, some papal conservatives, or Catholic conservatives. Hold on, just getting it ready to play. Let's play this now for you. See what this video has to say.
Pope Francis changed the face of the modern papacy by shunning much of its pomp and privilege. That made him an enemy to conservatives nostalgic for a traditional past, as did his attempts to create a more inclusive and less judgmental Catholic Church. Hailing from Argentina, Francis became the first non-European pope in 1,300 years, on election in 2013. It was the first time in 6 centuries a pope was elected after his predecessor resigned. Until Benedict died nearly a decade later, unusually there were 2 men in white in the Vatican. Francis inherited a deeply divided church, and that progressive-conservative gap became a chasm. Another defining challenge, sex abuse crimes by the clergy, and how to restore credibility to a damaged Catholic Church. Conservatives were unhappy from the start with Francis' informal style and his allergy to pomp, a simplicity that endeared him to millions. They balked at his calls for the Church to be more welcoming to LGBTQ people, whom he called children of God, and divorced Catholics. And at his clampdowns on using the traditional Latin Mass. He allowed women and Muslims to take part in a Holy Thursday ritual, until then restricted to Catholic men. Capital punishment was deemed inadmissible, and he attacked the arms industry and called for the abolition of nuclear weapons. A towering conservative, the late Australian Cardinal George Pell, called his papacy a catastrophe in a memo meant to be anonymous. But Francis could disappoint the liberals too. He refused to allow some married men to be ordained in remote areas, such as the Amazon. More women took senior Vatican roles, but not as many as progressives wanted. Most of the sexual abuse crimes that shook the Church took place before Francis's election, but he had to fix the damage. 2018 was a bad year. Francis had to apologise for grave mistakes after he defended a Chilean bishop accused of sex crimes against minors. He later sent an investigator. and US Cardinal Theodore McGarrick became the first cardinal defrocked for sex abuse. In 2019, Francis summoned church leaders to a summit and issued a landmark decree, making bishops accountable for sexual abuse or for covering it up, and abolishing pontifical secrecy for abuse cases. For victims groups, though, it was all too little, too late. Jorge Mario Bergoglio was the grandson of Italians who emigrated to Argentina during the Depression. He was born in Buenos Aires in 1936. He was the head of the Jesuit order during the dictatorship in the 70s and 80s, during which thousands of suspected leftists were kidnapped and killed. The Vatican has denied accusations by critics in Argentina that he stayed silent and failed to protect two priests who didn't. His papal name came from Francis of Assisi, the saint associated with concern for the poor. Pope Francis renounced luxurious apartments at the Vatican for a modest hotel he never moved out of, setting an example for cardinals he said lived like princes. He sent the bulletproof Popemobile off to a museum and was driven round in a car with few security features. Followers touched by tragedy or problems might pick up the phone to hear, "This is Francis." He was dubbed the Cold Call Pope. Pope Francis enjoyed international prestige. He spoke out for refugees and criticised countries that shunned migrants. Under his watch, the Vatican and the United Nations teamed up on climate change, and he published a landmark encyclical calling for a break from fossil fuels in 2015. The Pope, as leader of the 1.4 billion member Roman Catholic Church, is usually careful about taking sides in conflicts. But he was more outspoken about Israel's military campaign against Palestinian militant group Hamas, following the October 7, 2023 cross-border attack on southern Israel. He wrote how some international experts said that, quote, "What is happening in Gaza has the characteristics of a genocide." From day one of Russia's invasion of Ukraine in February 2022, Francis regularly made appeals for peace at his public appearances. He saw his own inability to bring an end to that war as a great disappointment of his papacy.
Interesting. Interesting video from Reuters. Yeah, that was very Crypto King liked that video. I thought that was a very good video, talking about various aspects of his papacy. I wonder if the next pope will go back to living in the usual papal apartments and not the very simple lodging in the, what is it, basically there's the normal, I don't know if it's the apartments, there's the normal places that the popes would customarily live, which are more luxurious. And then there's the simple lodging that Francis was living in. Now, will the next pope go back to the usual living quarters? I guess is my question. Yeah, he was staying at the Vatican Hotel. He renounced the spacious papal apartments in the Apostolic Palace and never moved out of the Vatican Hotel, where he had simple rooms, said Reuters. Chihuahua Mama says this will be an interesting time. Sterling thinks the next pope will have a TikTok. Does Francis not have a TikTok? I don't know. Billy Joe says it'll be interesting to see what principles the new pope they elect will have. There is a Pope Francis TikTok, I think. I'm looking at it right now. Pope Francis Official, it says. I don't know if there is, actually. I'm not sure. I'm seeing, I take it back. I'm not looking at it right now. There might not be one. I'd have to go through and look. I'm not seeing one off the top of just doing a quick search for it. Okay. Hang on. You're looking at a live shot there of St. Peter's Square in Vatican City. I don't believe I have a... I was looking for a picture. Somebody said, can you show a picture of his living quarters that he lives in? I don't know that I have one available to me that I, off the top, that I know where it is, that I have the rights to. I was looking around here. AP says, former President Biden says Pope Francis was unlike any who came before him. He will be remembered as one of the most consequential leaders of our time, and I am better for having known him. Biden, who is Catholic, called the Pope a challenging teacher, and above all, he was a Pope for everyone. So 15 to 20. Oh, in the video I just showed, though, I'm not sure that that was his living quarters. One of our viewers said it was in the video you just showed, Anna stared. I'm not positive that was it. I can check it again, but I wasn't exactly sure about that. I'm looking here. Is this it right here? Here, hold on. Let's look at this again. This is the
his
part you're
papal
talking
name
about.
came
Hold on.
from Francis of Assisi, the saint associated with concern for the poor. Pope Francis renounced luxurious apartments at the Vatican for a modest hotel he never moved out of, setting an example for cardinals he said lived like princes.
It seemed like that was a video of the apartment right there, so that's what it looked like. Smoke and mirrors coming soon? 15 to 20 days until the conclave. President Trump released a short statement already today saying, I will read it to you. Maybe he said something else about it, but he said, I read it earlier. He said, rest in peace, Pope Francis. May God bless him and all who loved him. Oh, there's like an Easter thing going on at the White House. There's the White House Easter egg roll, by the way. I can actually see it there. That's what they're doing at the White House. The White House Easter egg roll. Is that happening? Hold on. You know what? Maybe I'll show you Trump speaking from the White House Easter egg roll. It's about to start. So while we're here, I was going to probably wrap up the stream soon anyway. So maybe I'll just, if this start, I'll give it a minute. And if the White House Easter egg roll festivities start, because it's supposed to start very shortly, maybe I'll just stay on a second and show it. I don't know that he'll be, I mean, it's the Easter egg roll, so it's about Easter, so maybe he'll mention the Pope in those remarks. I don't know. But I'm keeping an eye on it. We'll give it a minute. But if you missed it, we've been on the air for a bit covering this. You know, I certainly could see us do more coverage, doing more coverage developments. I mean, maybe we'll cover the funeral. I don't know. I have to kind of look into that and see how that all is shaking out. But you know, we certainly could cover the election of the new pope. See if I have any updates here. Any new updates for you? By the way, I appreciate all you guys turning into the coverage today. A lot of people have been posting in the chat. Appreciate that as well. Please cover the funeral or the election of the new pope. Hang on a moment here. Yeah, I think the funeral is going to be a whole big event. And I might have, while we're waiting for that, I might have a couple other things to mention. Here, hold on. The Washington Post says, in Vatican City, regality was always part of the papal mystique, yet after receiving the nod, Francis personally placed a call. All right, so what does it say here? So, sorry, it says, Yet after receiving the nod, Francis personally placed a call to cancel his newspaper subscription back home in Buenos Aires. Previous pontiffs had traveled in the majestic comfort of a black limousine and lived in an opulent 10-room apartment overlooking St. Peter's Square. Francis hitched rides on a Holy See minibus to his chosen quarters, a boarding house plunked behind a gas station. It remained his home. Now, it does say that the Washington Post says that Francis embraced cultural practices from tango to Twitter, using the social media platform now known as X as a regular tool for communicating to the faithful. He became the first pope to give regular and long interviews to secular, non-religious reporters. In them, an image emerged of a man who came to the papacy not as a scholar or a bureaucrat, but as a front-lines cleric used to working in shanty towns. Nowhere more than in his historic outreach to the LGBTQ plus community, says the Washington Post, did his candid comments hint at a momentous change in the approach, if not the official teachings of the Church. Francis focused his papacy on pastoralism and outreach rather than the reinforcement of doctrine. The Post says that during his tenure, Catholicism faced serious resurgent challenges. The expansion of evangelical Christian churches, especially in the developing world, the abandonment of organized religion, a clerical shortage, and lingering disgust over the cover-up and management of sexual abuse allegations. The Post says that the number of baptisms in the Church, the Catholic Church, has decreased significantly from nearly 18 million baptisms in 1998 to 13.3 million in 2022. I was going to show you guys some of Trump speaking at the White House Easter egg hunt, if it starts soon. Because he might talk about, especially because he might talk about the Pope there. That's an interesting point that the Washington Post made in their article today that I was looking at, that one challenge to Catholicism recently is the expansion of evangelical Christian churches, which are not Catholic churches. Tiger 2-inch says, was J.D. Vance the last person to meet the Pope? That I don't know. It's a good question. He met with him yesterday. I mean, the Pope did he appeared in St. Peter's Square yesterday after that meeting. But, I mean, he did meet with him yesterday. So I probably didn't have that many meetings after that, where he met new people, but I don't know who he met after that. If anyone. How long will it take to pick the Pope? That I don't know. I mean, they could do it on the first day in theory if they agree, if enough people agree. I don't know how long it'll take. I am seeing that Francis was elected in just over a day in 2013. Benedict was elected in 2 days in 2005. I don't know if I'm going to wait for this Easter thing. I don't know how long it's going to take for it to start. Though it's kind of tangential to this broadcast anyway. So I think I might start wrapping up this broadcast. I don't really have much more to give you on this right now. We may cover it more in the future, though. I mean, I certainly could see maybe covering the funeral and covering the election of the new pope. But I think I'm going to start wrapping up this broadcast right now. If you missed it, we've been on for a while talking about this and reading your comments. Our viewer, Obama 457 Rose, says, being a Catholic is not easy. Parents have to attend classes for baptism, confirmation, and marriage. Many holy days of obligation, and that's where the comment ended. Maybe she ran out of room. Yes, as Northwoods Hiker says, 4 to 6 days to bury the Pope, and then total from the death to it's expected to be 15 to 20 days between the death of the Pope and the start of the conclave. Look, if there's other big news today, we can come back on there and do another live stream. But I think I'm going to start wrapping up this live stream. So I appreciate you joining me for this stream. And I will post updates on my X account, which is @Lookner. @Lookner on X. You can follow me over there. I'll post a link to it in the chat. And subscribe, follow Agenda Free TV. We cover all kinds of live breaking news here. Agenda Free TV. And turn the notifications on, so you can get a notification whenever we go live. I don't know when big news is going to happen. So we have a really good notification system we do through Discord. It's free. It's really reliable. And it's easy to sign up. So the mods will post the link to the Discord notifications in the chat. You can find that link in the description of this video on YouTube and Facebook as well. By the way, one of our viewers says baptisms increased this year. Is that true, Mamma Mia? I would have to look it up. I don't know. Thanks so much to our moderators for being here too. You guys are awesome. I really appreciate you being here for the morning stream. That is the reason that we can have chat rooms, as our moderators, so thank you. Beth Mythical, Ruth Krafasi over on YouTube. Thank you so much. Linda Belk, Misha, Larry on X. Over on Twitch, Bastion Girl, Big Ball of Yarn, Idaho Star, I Got That Fire, Matthew Kohai 3 and Surly Dev. On Facebook, K. Larry Body, I know, was over there modding. Paul Anderson, thank you, Paul. Margaret Riley, thank you. Appreciate it. All of our other moderators, thank you. And thanks to the people who donated too. That was really nice of you guys. I really appreciate that. Thank you. I think I thanked everybody. But thanks for your support of the channel. That's what keeps the channel on the air. Thank you. And a reminder, another good way to keep tabs on what's going on with the channel, to know when we're going live, for example, and get updates, is to follow us on X, @Agenda Free TV on X. I always post there when we're going live. Also, a quick reminder for those of you who watch on YouTube, I would suggest turning on the YouTube notifications. But to turn on the YouTube notifications, here's how you need to do that. It's kind of confusing. You need to, you'll see it on your screen in a second, you got to subscribe to the channel on YouTube, and then you got to click this the bell here and choose all notifications. That's how you turn on the notifications on YouTube. Oh, by the way, thanks to our Discord mods. Really appreciate it. And on Discord, we do have a chat where you can chat with other viewers when we're not on the air. A lot of our viewers like doing that. It's free chat. It's on Discord. Check it out. Same link as the notifications, like, oh, by the way, as we're finishing up, President Trump is speaking now. Hold on, I'm going to show you President Trump. Hold on a moment here. Let me put this on the screen for you. Might as well show it. Please give me one moment here. President Trump is there with the Easter Bunny. You'll see it in a second.
You see by the dawn's early light.
They're playing the national anthem. Let me turn it down. Also, obviously, it's not St. Peter's Square. It is now the White House. So he might say something about the Pope. I don't know. But as we're signing off, I told you if I could play it, I'd show it to you. So for those who want to stick around for a couple of minutes, we'll see what President Trump and the First Lady have to say. Anyways, the Discord chat, our free Discord chat, it's the same link as the free notifications link if you're interested in checking out the Discord chat. All right, so we're about to hear from President Trump. Sorry, I know that was a little loud there. Try to get the volume better for you. But here we go.
Well, thank you very much, everybody, and a very happy Easter to everyone. It was a beautiful day yesterday, and it's a beautiful day today. We don't have to worry about sunburn, but looks like it's not going to be raining. It's going to be really something special. 40,000, 42,000 people are expected all throughout the day, and it's an honor to have you. I just signed an executive order putting the flags of our country, all of them, all federal flags and state flags, at half-mast in honor of Pope Francis. So he was a good man, worked hard, he loved the world, and it's an honor to do that. I want to thank everybody for being here. This is some band. I've heard this band actually indirectly for 4 years and very directly now for 4.5. And I like the direct method even better. But the Marine Corps Band is very, very special. Thank you very much. What a great job. Thank you. Thank you. I also want to thank the National Park Service, the job they do in making everything so beautiful and spiffy. And I'm very difficult when it comes to that. I will tell you, very, very difficult. And I say they have done an incredible job. You just have to look around and see. And I just want to give a special thank you to our great First Lady who organized this entire event. She worked very, very hard on it. She worked very hard. I said, what are you doing? She said, I'm working on the egg roll. I said, that sounds like a lot of fun. And we're going to have a lot of fun in just a couple of minutes. But again, our country is doing very well. We had the highest number of recruits, enlistments that we've had in, I think, 28 or 29 years, and I'm sure we're going to actually beat that number. It's all happened since November 5th. It's all happened. Enrollment in the military is at a record, and enrollment in the police force, fire forces, and all of the different law enforcement groups. We're setting records, and 6 months ago we couldn't get anybody. And now we're setting records. That's sort of testament to what's happening in terms of the spirit of our country. We love our country, and it's been something very, very special. And speaking of special, Easter is special, and it's one of our favorite days. It's one of our favorite periods of time. We're honoring Jesus Christ, and we're going to honor Jesus Christ very powerfully throughout our lives, all throughout our lives, not just now, all throughout our lives. We're bringing religion back in America. We're bringing a lot of things back, but religion is coming back to America. That's why you see the kind of numbers that you're seeing, the spirit and the kind of numbers that you're seeing. So we're going to come down and join you right now. But I just want to wish everybody once again, happy Easter and enjoy your lives. We're going to have a great 4 years. Thank you very much, everybody. Thank you.
All right, by the way, I apologize. It's actually the Easter egg roll and not the Easter egg hunt. It's the Easter egg roll. They're not hunting for eggs. They're rolling the eggs. Anyways, I'm going to keep wrapping up. I was about to wrap up the stream and that happened. He did mention the Pope, so we got to see that. Let me say a couple thank yous here. Hey, thanks to our subscribers over there on Facebook, like Sharon Klassen-Gosselin and Jennifer Ellers, Margaret Riley and Kay Larry Body, Kristen McConnell Gates, Eve Richards, thank you for subscribing over there. All of our subscribers over there on Facebook, thank you. Rita Evans Lang, thank you. And I also want to thank our Twitch subscribers. All of our other Facebook subscribers, thanks. Thanks to our Twitch subscribers. Now what am I doing here? I got to fix this whole thing. It's all messed up now. Oh. I had my Twitch screen all set up the way I like it, and it's all messed up now. I got to redo the whole thing. It got all, I don't have no idea why it got all messed up, but it is. Twitch, why is everything, I can't even see anything I want to see. Okay, that's a little better. Can't even see the chat. Where's the chat? Can barely see the chat. Sorry, I'm still trying to see it. So I can thank some people there. This is really annoying. Really annoying. Sorry, Twitch. I have to fix everything after the stream. I can't. It's ridiculous. That's better. Now I can see it a little better. Gina Pina, thanks for subscribing on Twitch. Wall Street and Shaggy and Douthus. Thank you, Bogan04, as we were watching President Trump live there, and the First Lady, as I wrap this up. Mate'na, thanks for subscribing. All of our other Twitch subscribers and our YouTube members, like NY Committee, Northwoods Hiker, Crypto King, Practakills, CAC813, Chantal's, Harry S, I'll say, Harry Sand, Kenneth Colton, Crypto King, Northwoods Hiker, Snow, Holstrand, thanks for being a member, Austin Batman, William Cromer, Go Fly a Kite, Zonti Misfit, Bluesy Girl, Bebop and Rocksteady, Crypto King. I think I said Crypto King 3 times, but it doesn't matter. I like saying Crypto King. Xylee42, Karen M, Rabbit, Evelyn in Maine, Pink Volo. Oh, it's Practical. That's who it was. And all of our other viewers. Anne, thanks for being a member. All right. As we sign off, I'm going to send you back over here to that is Vatican City. That's not the White House. That's a live shot of Vatican City. So anyways, you're looking at Vatican City. If you missed it, we spent a bunch of time today talking about the death of Pope Francis and his life. and what happens next, so you can re-watch the stream if you want. Go back and rewind, and you can check that out if you want to see it. But by the way, Justin King says, he made an appearance yesterday. I was surprised he died. Made an appearance in St. Peter's Square and also met J.D. Vance yesterday. Yogi Shiem said the fact he passed on Easter is kind of crazy. I think technically the day after Easter, yes. Oh, by the way, I might have missed some other comments I wanted to check out. Hold on a second here, even though I forgot to check a couple things. Oh, this is interesting. Thanks, PJ Bachman, for mentioning this. You know, I hadn't seen this before, guys. Just a little news alert for you. CNN is reporting that via Caitlin Collins, a thief stole DHS Secretary Kristi Noem's bag this weekend, including her driver's license, medication, apartment keys, passport, DHS access bag, makeup bag, blank checks, and about $3,000 in cash. I just saw that report. That's not really relevant to what we're covering, but thanks PJ Bachman for mentioning it. I've been kind of focusing on this, so I hadn't seen that. Anyways, I reposted the link to it on X, if anybody wants to see it. I'll post a link in the chat, and you can read it yourself if you want to read the story. It was stolen from a D.C. restaurant, CNN reported. It was stolen on Saturday night while eating dinner. CNN says the Secret Service reviewed security camera footage and saw an unknown white male wearing a medical mask steal her bag and leave the restaurant. Crazy. And the thief got her driver's license, medication, apartment keys, passport, DHS access badge, makeup bag, blank checks, and about $3,000 in cash. Anyways, G Slayers is probably a Russian operative. All right, so thanks to PJ Bachman for messaging me about that. So I was just about to wrap up the stream. By the way, Sports Card Collector says, I'm surprised Pope Francis died. He was recovering and was released from the hospital. At least he had some time left to see Easter for one last time. That's from Sports Card Collector. All right, guys, I am wrapping this up now. But again, I really appreciate you guys being here. And those of you in the chat, thanks for chatting about this. And if you missed our coverage where we talk about the life and death of Pope Francis and his papacy and what happens next, you can rewind the stream and check it out. So I am wrapping it up. Oh, I'm not going to cover the egg roll, but if you want, you can go to White House social media and see the Easter egg roll. But I'm going to wrap up this stream right now. Percanic said he was a good man. What a rotten way to die. All right. Again, thank you so much for being here, William Cromer, Ruth Kafasi, and all of our other moderators who I thanked before. Chihuahua Verde. And if there's huge news later today, we will cover it. All right, guys. That is it for now. Thank you for watching. Again, condolences to the family of Pope Francis and the everyone in the Catholic world and around the world who was close to him or followed him. And that is it for our stream right now. And again, maybe we'll have a stream of the funeral or the new Pope being chosen. That is it for now. Thank you for watching, and we will see you soon with more live breaking news coverage right here at Agenda Free TV.